Hey, ever wonder what secret element guarantees success for an open world gacha game? And no, it is not how F2P friendly it is. These days every game is F2P. So then, what is it? Before we talk about that secret element, let's look at the popular talks in town as to why Wuthering Waves might flop or might succeed. Reason number 1 why people think it might fail is that Genshin players will not switch to another game which is quote unquote a copy of Genshin. Now stay with me here, we'll go over this very soon. Number 2 is the monotone art style which has been presented in the CBT. Reason number 3, Google Trends show a very low interest rate of Wuthering Waves. Key statement here, compared to Genshin Impact. Reason number 4 is that new open world gacha games are around the corner like Project Mugen and people only have limited time in a day. Reason 5, Tower of Fantasy, quite self-explanatory. Reason 6 is that the game might be released in a rush and could end up being laggy and underdeveloped. Now, let's go over them once. As for reason 1, Genshin players are in fact looking up to the new game. In multiple big community polls like Tectone, Enviosity, we have seen Genshin players who are eagerly waiting out to try Wuthering Waves and seeking fresh content. The game also drives fresh traffic from PGR players and intensive marketing strategies which are clearly visible in the amount of pre-registrations. The only lot of people who are not are usually ones living back in 2021 or people who are completionists in Genshin Impact and are burnt out so much that they fear new content. Brother, that's a you thing. Disproved. If we look at number 2, it is extremely easy to override since if we look at Genshin CBT, it looked dull compared to the main release. We can conclude a similar situation for Wuthering Waves. Disproved. As for number 3, some smart people claim that Wuthering Waves has a way lower Google Trend traffic than Genshin Impact. However, they forget it is in present time when Genshin Impact is already in full swing. If we look just 2 days before Genshin's release, the interest level was 6. As you can see here, whereas 1 week before Wuthering Waves release, the interest level is 5, making it extremely similar, so this completely disproves the lower trend point. On to number 4, Wuthering Waves is releasing at a fairly great time given how almost no other open world gacha games are likely to release this year. That gives the players enough time to figure out whether the game is worth the time or not. Number 5, Tower of Fantasy. It was the first game which was perceived as a Genshin clone as to why being underestimated and left to rot after the initial wave of hype. However, with other gacha games release such as Hoyo's own Honkai Star Rail, the mental barrier to sticking to a single game has been breached, thus providing Wuthering Waves a fair time and opportunity. As for the last reason of plausible flopping is the assumption that the game might be published in a rush. For this, we have to look back in time. Genshin Impact's development started in January 2017 and released on September 2020, that is around 1350 days. Wuthering Waves on the other hand had started development in late 2020 and full swing by 2021. That puts the game at around 1250 days of development, which is extremely respectable and enough time to steer clear of such rush-based issues. Alright, before we discuss the actual secret element and the variables that control the game's future, let's look at the popular reasons as to why Wuthering Waves might succeed. 1. Kuro Games listens to its community as seen in PGR, as well as them immediately fixing major issues pointed out by CBT players and other criticizers. Number 2. The game has seriously fresh combat mechanics such as echoes. Who doesn't want to keep a dragon in their pocket, right? Number 3. The game is extremely F2P friendly and at the same time challenging. As you can see here, there is a lot of baseless clout in the flop reasons as compared to people even considering why it might succeed. Now then, let's get to the point. The real factor and the secret element. If we look back in history, every single time a game has succeeded, it does not correlate with how much of a technical marvel it is. This applies to every single genre. Let's look at something way different than open world gacha. Forza Horizon 5, a beast in terms of arcade simulation, racing, realism and all of that combined. However, the game is as good as dead now. Whereas something like GTA 5 racing lobbies with low correlation to actual car mechanics has almost 100 times more daily players. See, it all comes down to how well the game designs their progression. Forza 5 gave away extremely high value cars and assets to the players in their first hour of playing, thus leaving no room for meaningful progress, which is why people did not feel attached to their progress in game. The opposite is evident in Genshin Impact. Hoyoverse has always been stingy with primogems, and that is what gives meaning to the progress you do. That is exactly the reason why you feel attachment to your characters, because you worked hard for them. Now, this is not to say Wuthering Waves should introduce extremely difficult progression systems, but to balance it for good. Kuro Games need to ensure that their reward system is perceived as high value to make meaningful impression in the player base. Besides this major aspect, one of the main reasons for success of games in this open world gacha category is the quality of open world, of course. The immersiveness supported by it that drives the initial stages of success. Like, after all, you do get attached to a game where you get lost in immersiveness, aimlessly exploring the lands. These were the factual pointers. As far as what I think, I believe the game will definitely peak and see a massive player base in the first few months. As for the years to come, it totally depends on what the devs do with the game. On the topic of Wuthering Waves, I am an extremely eager player and will be uploading regular content on the game's release and streaming every single day. Be sure to drop by.